David and Victoria appear happily in front of the door to the club, holding hands, but nobody at that time realized they'd arrived separately, and when they both go into the club, 10 minutes later, David leaves by the back door, leaving Victoria in the club to get drunk, and at the end of the night, singing Wannabe.
Hi all, Kinsey Schofield here, and I am with I talk about him constantly. I'm with one of my favorite authors in the world, Tom Bower. Tom, you have recently released a book called The House of Beckham, Money, Sex, and Power. That's out now. I have the Audible version and the physical copy. Congratulations on all of your success. Were you nervous about this book at all? Because the Beckhams are a pretty intimidating couple.
No, I wasn't at all intimidated or worried. It's my 27th book, and I've taken on much bigger people than the Beckhams. But it was a very intriguing story because of all the fame and fortune that they've created. So it was a challenge, like every other book is a challenge.
Absolutely. Specifically, you talk about a lot of the scandals that they don't touch in their glossy Netflix docuseries. One issue is Rebecca Loos, who claims that she and Beck slept together after connecting on a night out with friends. She said, "I would always say to myself, don't risk your job, and I knew there was a huge risk involved if I got involved with this man." Was she not frightened of Victoria, or was Victoria just that missing in action during Real Madrid? Because Victoria, to me, is a very intimidating character.
Well, it's a complicated story, and she spoke to me at great length about it. That is Rebecca Loos. I think that she initially wasn't very attracted to Beckham, but once Victoria disappeared, not, as Victoria claims, look after her children, but to race around England and America to try to rebuild her pop career with Damon Dash, Rebecca Loos found herself alone with David Beckham in Madrid. And Beckham was naturally attracted to Loos. She was a good-looking, very intelligent, charming woman. And I think they just fell into each other's arms. And I don't think Rebecca Loos had any fears of Victoria, because after all, Victoria wasn't in Madrid. She just thought she was having a great time with a man who claimed that she was the first time he'd ever been adulterous. Well, of course, she then discovered that he'd been lying to her.
Wow, she was just living her best life, Bauer. You know, all we can do is respect it. All right, you reveal a tough period in 2016 where the Beckhams barely communicate. This was fascinating to me. I'd never read anything like this. You describe it as a distant business relationship. You say David accused Victoria and her publicist of waging a media war against him. Then we fast forward to 2018. David appeared on a TV show and described their marriage as hard work. You say Victoria was devastated by this revelation. Was David trying to hurt her, or was he just being authentic? I feel like of the both of them, I get much more authenticity from him.
Well, I think the big difference is, well, it's a very long question there, but I think the point is this, that it had become a business relationship after all his affairs in Spain and elsewhere. And she very cleverly realized that the brand could only work if they stayed together. And I think that was her astute observation, that was her courage to put aside the humiliation she felt because of his affairs with Rebecca Loos and others. And by 2016, it had become a pattern in their lives. They weren't living much together, but they posed as a happy family. It was hypocrisy, but it worked, and it produced huge profits for both of them. And I think that David Beckham felt that he was being often used. He clearly was often unhappy. He often felt that she was using the children in a way which he didn't like. There was too much media attention. And it became quite explosive between them. And that's what the book traces. That's why the subtitle is Money, Sex and Power. That was their cocktail, and that was making them very, very rich. The key to all of this is how they manipulated the media, how they made sure that their image appeared pristine and how they appeared to be a happy family, concealing the reality of their relationship, which was often very fractious, often apart, very self-interested, very narcissistic, but always very cleverly posing for the cameras and appearing just a happy couple. And that took a lot of hard work, and sometimes he exploded. And that time when he said on camera, marriage is complicated and hard, was when it reached an idea, a bottom, that he'd had enough. And that all exploded, as the book describes, in a shoot for Vogue magazine, where he refused to appear in a photograph with the whole family.
That's right. And poor Olive the dog, the Instagram famous Cocker Spaniel. I mean, what that was one of my favorite stories. Like Olive realizing that this was a tense moment and basically trying to flee from the boat. I mean, absolute chaos. And I'm sure at the time they were both just so angry because it seems like they're control freaks, and it just seemed like everything was out of control at that one moment. Olive takes off. David's this close to jumping full outfit into the water. I mean, that must have been a bad day for the Beckham family.
Well, I think it is, and it was. But I mean, what's remarkable is that there was a war between the publicists as well. Victoria, David, and the children all arrive with their own publicists, and the publicists are at war. They're fighting for their corners. So the whole Vogue saga was a huge internecine family brawl, which the climax is when the magazine is published and is a huge success, earns the publishers a lot of money. They have a celebratory party at a club in London, and David and Victoria appear happily in front of the door to the club, holding hands, but nobody at that time realized they'd arrived separately, and when they both go into the club, 10 minutes later, David leaves by the back door, leaving Victoria in the club to get drunk. And at the end of the night, singing Wannabe, one of the favorite Spice Girls songs, to the assembled crowd. I mean, it's completely surreal and nothing to do with what they present. And that's the purpose of the book, to show that it's all a facade. I mean, celebrity is all contrived. And that's what's so interesting about this story.
It's so fascinating. And I was trying to navigate how this relationship is beneficial to both of them, professionally, because you say, you answered the question. You say David continues to finance Victoria's, you say it's vanity fashion, her beauty business, which has notoriously not been necessarily financially successful. Meanwhile, she creates the illusion of a happy family, which is attractive to corporations with advertising dollars that might look at David Beckham and say, let's put his face on whatever box of this. That sounds like an exhausting life.
Well, it is for mere mortals, and it's exhausting probably to sustain the relationship. I think what you've got to take from this book, if you don't mind me saying so, it's not just about their relationship. But here you've got a world-famous footballer, and a world-famous singer. What Spice Girls was a very successful group in the late 90s. And they blend it together to create a brand which represents, for many people, they have more than 100 million followers combined, some sort of ideal. And they have to sustain the ideal. And the thing about David Beckham is that he was a good footballer, not a great footballer, as the book shows, but he was a very, very beautiful young man, and still is very good looking, hugely attractive to many women. And Victoria, on the other hand, is good looking, but has to try very hard to look sexy. And she talks endlessly about sex, because clearly there's a problem. And that's what's so fascinating about this story. You have a man who's attractive to countless women, a woman who's jealous, clearly, of his success with other women, and jealous that other women chase after him, but she's not being chased by men. And on the other hand, her one great endeavor is to create a hugely successful fashion business. Well, of course, it isn't successful, and it's tiny. It's, £50 million turnover. Dior is £60 billion turnover a year. I mean, it is less than a minnow. and he finances it all just to keep her quiet and happy. So there's endless conflicts behind the scenes of a woman and a man who, on the whole, have been hugely successful. And as you rightly say, the Netflix series increased their popularity dramatically. They constantly create an image which is so different to reality.
Yeah, you mentioned Victoria's jealousy. I could not believe that she wouldn't allow Bex to do a Pepsi commercial with Britney Spears because Britney Spears said one time that she thought he was kind of cute. I mean, that is a whole new level of jealousy. Britney Spears says everybody's cute. Like that's just her, that was her MO at the time.
Yeah, and it was the same with lots of other famous actresses. But there's one time, of course, in South Africa where Beckham meets Charlie Theron, and they clearly hit it off enormously. But they both dressed in identical shirts. People come and go in through Bex's life. Beckham is hugely attractive, and I think by now Victoria has come to an arrangement, both with David and within herself, that she just can't afford to be jealous anymore. It isn't worth it. And they just lead lives which sometimes coincide and sometimes are separate, especially when he's in Miami for his football team.
I mean, this is just reiterating what you said. David and Victoria, they seem so consumed with money, almost obsessed with the idea of maintaining this global brand to attract public interest. It is giving Harry and Meghan. Posh and Bex are just shamelessly better at it. Do you agree? They've got a template down that Harry and Meghan really should try to find. They should figure that out.
Well, the misfortune is this, that Beckham is lusted over by women and, of course, many football fans, soccer fans. They admired his amazing career. She has capitalized both on her singing and using him. They've created a brand which sells, football boots and shirts and fragrances, coffee, all sorts of things, which Meghan and Harry can only lust after. I mean, nobody wants to have the life of Meghan and Harry. That's the big difference, that Beckham and Victoria parade their lives, but people are curious about their lives. They'd quite like to be on their boat and have one of Beckham's amazing many cars, or try one of the wines that they like, or the snails that they eat, or anything. I mean, that's what they've aroused a curiosity. There's a mystery about the Beckhams, which of course my book seeks to destroy, or at least probe. But there's no mystery about the lives of Harry and Meghan. It's so crude. It has so patently failed. And the other thing is this, that Meghan and Harry, as I showed in my book, don't always tell the truth. And they've harmed many people, not least the British royal family and Meghan's father. Bex and Posh, Beckham and Victoria, haven't harmed anybody. They're not bad people in that sense. I mean, they avoid taxes. They don't tell the truth. But they're no individuals who've actually been damaged by them. And so one is far more sympathetic towards the Beckhams than to the Sussexes.